Hey, folks. Sir Charles Carey, Carl T. Smith, the smooth one. How's it going, man? I can't hear a single thing.
How about now?
Oh, loud and clear. I copy
All
that.
right.
Look, for those of you that are not sure, this is the TRU-MU podcast where we talk about all things creative, all things innovative. And if you don't know, creativity comes in all shapes, forms, and fashions, not just in the arts, but also in business. And today I'm really excited because as a creative myself, we get a chance to experience and we're going to grill him. We're going to cross-examine him. Our guest, Tyler Gathro, he's a photographer. I look at him as a true artist, and he's from around the way. So we're going to talk about some things that I hope you find just as interesting as we do. Tyler, what's going on, my man?
Hello. Thanks for having me. Blessed to be here.
Oh yeah, man. Look, I was so excited about having you on the show because when we met, we were in a mastermind, the $100,000 mastermind,
That's right.
and when you were starting to tell me about what you do, I just found it. I mean, I had more questions, but I didn't want to overwhelm you with the questions in my mind because I'd never heard of a process like yours with what you do. But before we get there, tell us about the young Tyler, man.
The young Tyler. Well, just a real quick backstory. So I grew up in Florida and loved the arts growing up. I mean, I was that kid who was always drawing in school.
Okay.
And having a hard time focusing on math or science or anything else just because I wanted to draw. And luckily, I had the opportunity to take a lot of art classes in at a young age, and I had a sculpture teacher. I was blessed with a sculpture teacher when I was in high school that said, "Hey, there's a free art school in New York City. That's one of the best in the world. It's called the Cooper Union." And I had never heard of it, and I didn't come from a very wealthy background. My parents didn't make a lot of money, and I thought, free, that sounds great.
I know that's right.
That's right. So I looked into it, and sure enough, I was like, wow, this is a really prestigious school. And so I worked my butt off as a young teenage kid. And when I was 18, I moved from Florida to New York City. And
so 2 questions real quick. What part of Florida were you referencing that you started out in?
So I grew up in Jacksonville, which is the northeast part of Florida. Yeah.
Okay. And then how old were you when you took advantage of that opportunity to go to the school?
Yes, I graduated high school, just a few months after I turned 18, just like most kids, and went to college at age 18, moved to New York City. Didn't have any family around, had never even been to New York. I never even visited the school. I just, I knew it was a great school. So I said, okay, I'm going to go. And it was full tuition, and they don't accept many people. So there was only 60 people accepted from the world, from around the world every year. So, and it's located in East Village in Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So anyways, yeah, that's a little bit of I mean, I also grew up as a man of faith. My parents raised me as a devout Christian. And of course, I think with any kid, you kind of question, like, is this really the right thing? Your parents, like, you're going to go to church. You got to go to church. But you got to kind of figure that out for yourself of, like, is this right? Is this what I want? And, so as a teenager, it took a lot of soul searching for me and praying for me. And I kind of quickly realized, like, no, my faith really is important. I do believe this. And I do also, I am an artist, and I want to bridge those two worlds that are really a big part of me, is my creative art making side and my faith side. And I want to put those together. So anyway, that's a little bit about my background.
Man, I had some of those same questions growing up. I was asking my mom, like, why do we got to go to church every Sunday, same time of the year, and he preaches the same message? And her answer was, just keep going. You'll figure it out.
You figure it out. Yeah.
But when you went to school, though, Was that for the drawing? Your interest in drawing at that time?
I was interested in all forms of art making. I was doing a lot of drawing and painting and some mixed media work when I was in
What's
high
that?
school.
What is mixed media for those that don't know?
Yeah, great question. So mixed media is just the materials that you're using. So maybe you're using charcoal or graphite with drawing. Maybe you're using oil or acrylics for painting. But mixed media might be a combination of a lot of different things. You could use wood or fabric or
Oh, okay.
lots of different processes. So mixed media means it's not just one type of medium. It's not just watercolor. It's not just clay. It's a mixture of materials. And so I was doing lots of things, and it was really in New York City as a young kid, 18, 19-year-old kid, that I started exploring what was I really interested in. So yeah.
Right. And do you find that using mixed media, you find out or you learn what works together well and what doesn't, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, I think all visual artists need to understand material. The materiality is an important thing to understand. Every artist has, whether you're a musician or dancer or whatever, you have the things that you work with, whether you're working with sound or whether you're working with movement. And for artists, visual artists, we're working with materials, right? So what are those? What materials do you use, and how do they work together to create the thing you want to create?
So you did sculpting as well. You dabbled in that as well.
Yeah, I dabbled in that as well, and eventually I settled on photography as a medium. Eventually I kind of settled on photography as a medium, and that's interesting how I came. I don't know if that's where you wanted to go with this right now, but how did I come to that realization that I wanted to use the camera as my paintbrush?
Yeah. How did that happen? What brought you there?
Yeah. So I was always kind of interested in things that felt realistic, even though I was, I loved the tonal range you could get as a photographer, meaning the range from black to white, the gradients. I liked the visual look of that. But then I had an opportunity when I was 21, I guess, 21 years old, 22 years old. And I did a study abroad in Israel, in Jerusalem. And I went to a school called the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem.
Wow.
And it was for one semester. And I focused 100% on photography while I was there. And it was during that period of time that I realized what the camera could allow me to do.
Okay.
Right. And to expound on that, I discovered that the camera became a tool for me to travel the world, for me to meet new people. For example, I was interested in learning about other cultures and other people, particularly in this new country where English wasn't the predominant language. And I was very interested in faith and religion. And there was a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood where they spoke Yiddish.
Okay.
And they didn't speak English. And I was very interested in their culture and their people. I wanted to know more. And the camera was a tool that I felt like it allowed me to, it gave me access to this neighborhood. Because without the camera, I would walk in and it's like, why are you here? Just to learn. But it was like, okay, why are you here? I'm here. And now I had this tool. I had this camera to say, hey, I want to learn, and I want to document, and can I take your photo? Right. And it was just it broke barriers for me personally. And maybe for some people, the camera can feel very abrasive. But for me, it became a tool that allowed me to access the world in new ways. And I realized after that, like, okay, wait a minute. This is, for some people, they have a paintbrush. For some people, you might have some other tool or instrument. But for me, the camera became my tool. And And that was really eye-opening. That was a beautiful thing. So I was like, wow, okay, I can do this.
So before I turn it over to Carl, let me ask you this: when you were in New York, did you ever go to the Heights, Washington Heights? Because there's a Jewish community in different parts of New
Yeah,
York,
yeah.
but
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in Brooklyn, there's
exactly.
massive Jewish communities in Brooklyn, and I have lots of Jewish friends in New York City. So yes, yes, I did. And
Okay,
yeah.
Carl, let them have it, man. Don't hold back.
Well, no, not yet, not yet.
Okay.
So how long were you there? Um, over in, what you say it was Israel?
Yeah. So there was a semester study abroad when I was a college student.
Semester
It was
being what?
one
6
semester.
months?
It was about 4 or 5 months. However, during that time, I had also gotten in contact with an NGO that was working in Jordan. So I finished my semester of schooling and I moved to Jordan, and I did some design and photography work for this NGO in Amman, Jordan. Came back to the States just to finish a year of college, and then decided I wanted to be a documentary photographer. And so I actually moved back to the Middle East, and I spent 2 years in the Middle East traveling around as a documentary photographer.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. And when you came to New York, where were you staying?
Yeah, so I spent a total of 8 years in New York City, off and on at different times. So my freshman year of college as an 18-year-old living in East Village, and then, like I said, my faith was really important to me. So after a year of college, I decided to take 2 years off, and I became a missionary, and moved to Los Angeles. And I was a missionary mostly in the Hispanic community in LA. I went back to New York City to finish school, and I lived in different places. I lived on 125th and Fifth Ave up in Harlem. I lived 168th and between Amsterdam and Broadway. You kind of move around. For those of you who are New Yorkers, you're always trying to look for a good apartment deal.
Yeah.
Cheaper rent, bigger place. Trying to move around. So I lived in a lot of places. I lived in Inwood. That's where my wife and I we just moved from Inwood to Salt Lake City.
Wow, you had them tall ceilings, them high ceilings.
Yeah.
Man, go ahead, Carl. What, you got something else? Because I was going to ask him, like,
Oh, so okay, so okay, so now what I gather is that your weapon of choice, your tool of choice is a camera.
Mm-hmm.
what camera do
is
you
a camera,
with?
right?
Yeah, that's right. That's
Okay.
right.
What do you
Right,
shoot
that
with?
was my thing.
Oh, so what types of cameras? Oh, that I don't have necessarily a specific one. I shoot with lots of different cameras. There are some
No.
people. Who are gear focused, and
Yeah.
I am not gear focused, because for me it's not about the gear. It's about
Subject?
it's about the subject. It's about art is much more about contemplation than it is about communication. What I mean by that is, if you're a graphic designer, you're trying to communicate a message that's very clear, right? Advertisements, billboards, posters, and it has to be very clear, one-to-one, like instant. You got it, and that's communication. But for me, that's not the art that I'm after. I'm after art that helps you contemplate, that helps you feel, that helps you see the world in new ways. And so for me, the gear doesn't necessarily matter. Now, I do care about having good quality. So whether I'm shooting on a Sony A7R4, whether I'm shooting on or shooting medium format with a Fuji GSX 100, or whether I'm
Right.
shooting film, we could go into the gear, but I often, I actually am a professor right now in Salt Lake City. I teach, and I advise, and I have to teach about the gear. It's important for new beginners, for
Yes.
new photographers to understand the gear. But I try to instill in my students the importance of gear's not everything. In fact, I know a lot of people who are gear focused, and who miss the mark as an artist.
So, but I mean, how many cameras do you have though?
I have several. I don't know. I probably have 10. I probably have 10
Really?
cameras.
So, I mean, okay, I understand the subject and the content is more important than, focusing on, Yashica or, Konica or whatever, or, Canon. But do you like mirrorless over DSLRs or,
Yeah, and
what's
yeah, great question. And I don't know if most people know this or not. DSLR cameras have been around for decades now,
yeah,
and but within the past few years, major manufacturers like Canon, Nikon, Sony,
yep,
you name it, have all officially declared that they are no longer manufacturing new DSLR cameras.
really?
That's right. That's right. So they're not making any new cameras now. That's
Also,
not
the
to,
current
that's
ones
not
are,
to right. So if they've already have, like, for example, a new entry level Canon Rebel T7 or
yeah,
Ti8i, whatever,
yeah,
they'll still make some of those, but they're not designing and manufacturing any new DSLR cameras. And eventually, within the next few years, DSLRs will fade out completely.
wow,
Because, and here's the reason, because mirrorless technology has become so good.
yeah,
It is lighter weight. It is silent. It is easier to access the image sensor. You have faster autofocus tracking. It's better for video. There's so many capabilities now in the mirrorless technology that
yeah,
DSLR is going out. So, do I own DSLR cameras? Yes, because I've
sure.
come from that. Do I own film cameras? Yes, because you learn and you keep things along the way as you grow. But
It's part of your, I guess, the developmental phases in your professional, journey.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I have two mirrorless. I have a Sony and I have a Canon. I don't know which one I like better, but they're both great.
Yeah,
they're both great. Are
yeah.
you a camera guy, Carl? Do you have any cameras?
Hey, but you know what? What's the
You're
best camera in the
cheating.
world? What's the best camera in the world?
Your
The
phone,
Phone,
right?
camera that's in your pocket.
the
Yeah,
Right? The
phone.
yeah,
camera
Yeah,
you carry with you.
it's ready. I'm ready all the time.
Right, that's right.
yeah,
And that's the thing. It's like people need to recognize that I get asked a lot, as a professional photographer and artist, I get asked, like, which camera should I buy and and I have to ask a couple probing questions to see how serious they are. But in all honesty, the camera that you have with you
yeah.
is going to be the best one for you in that whatever situation it is.
I
Yeah,
get it.
sure, absolutely. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I guess I've gotten older and I still like learning about uh things, but I do like gear, whether it's music gear, photography gear, video gear. I mean, I just like gear.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah.
I'm a gearhead, so I do go in for equipment, man. I like going into a camera store, a music store,
Mhm.
whether it's music for listening or music as a musician. I mean,
That's
being
right.
a musician, it's hard to just walk by. Even an Apple store, if I'm in any
Yeah.
city and there's an Apple store, I know I don't need anything, but I gotta go in.
Oh, I could spend all day in B&H, you
Yeah. Oh
know,
my God. Yeah.
spend all day at B&H, right? For those of people who are in New York City, the headquarters there, and you just go into the audio department, it's like you spend all day.
Man, touching, feeling, and that's just, yeah. I mean, I just love it. But I do also understand that, from my understanding, which is minimal because I only learned this because of you, you have taken your photography to a different level because you expressed to me that you are shooting and incorporating Braille with some of your work.
Mhm.
I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I see myself as an artist more
Hmm.
so than a photographer, right? The
Okay.
camera for me is a tool. I've gone through phases of that, right? So I've worked as a portrait photographer and a documentary photographer, and there are times when I would say, yes, I'm a photographer, right? And in fact, even on my website, it says Tyler Gathro, artist, photographer, educator, right? So I recognize that I'm a photographer too, but first and foremost, I'm an artist. So what does that mean? I think for me, it's much more about what I'm trying to, the questions I'm asking, what I'm trying to contribute to the world, and what I'm trying to investigate, right? And less so about client work and producing images for a magazine or whatever. So you asked about Braille. Yeah. So just to give a little bit of background, as you can see, I'm wearing glasses, and we all are. And we all have stories about when we got glasses for the first time, right? How old were we when we got glasses? Huh? Yeah.
Even the young guy over there.
Yeah.
He swears he's 21 forever, Tyler. He claims he's 21. He continues to say he's 21.
Why you don't believe me? I don't understand. Why you don't believe me?
Because you can relate to everything we're talking about.
Yeah. That's right.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So I was 11 years old, and I have a distinct memory of going to the eye doctor and getting tested because things were getting blurry. In school, it was hard to see the board. So the doctor comes out and says, "You got to have glasses," and I cried. And I have a distinct memory as an 11-year-old boy, just sitting in the waiting room crying because I didn't want to have glasses, and I felt like people might pick on me or whatever as a young kid. And but nonetheless, I got glasses, and it helped my vision. However, every year my eyesight worsened. So a year later, in 7th grade, I had to get my prescription increased, and then again in 8th grade, my eyesight got worse, and my prescription went up. And so, pretty quickly, I started to develop a fear as a teenager that, hey, what if this never stops? What if my eyesight keeps getting worse and worse and worse every year? What if I go blind?
Right.
And that question came into my mind as a young kid because I was literally my eyesight was getting worse all the time. And so I started to, when I was a young kid at 17 years old, as a senior in high school, I started to use Braille in my artwork. I had a friend at the high school.
Yeah. At 17, you started to. So you were learning Braille at 17? Is that the idea?
Yes. So I had a friend who was at my high school. I say friend. We were acquaintances. We knew each other, cordial with each other, and she was blind.
Wow.
She was blind. So she went to this high school, but she was blind, and the high school had a lot of accommodations for her. And so I approached her and said, "Hey, I'm interested in incorporating some Braille into my artwork. How do I do that?" I didn't even know how to do that, right? Okay. And she said, "Well, there's something called a slate and stylus. It's a little board, and you can kind of punch it yourself." And I said, "Oh, do you have one? Or like, how do I get one?" And she said, "Yeah, I have an extra one. I'll give you one." Right? And so she gave me a slate and stylus, and I still have it today. In fact, I still use it. And I got that when I was 17 years old. That was, that was 20 years ago. I'm 37. That was 20 years ago. So, yeah, that was how it started. And then fast forward several years, when I was in my mid 20s, I'm married. I'm living in Philadelphia, living in Philly. And I had a.
This can't be still. You just got to go everywhere, huh,
yeah.
Tyler?
Yeah. Yeah. So my wife and I lived in South Philly, and I had a photo artist studio that I was running. And my eyesight was getting kind of rough, and my eyes were hurting. And I said, "You know what?" I told my wife, I said, "Sarah, I think I need to go to the eye doctor and get a checkup." And I went in, they ran some tests, and the optometrist said, "I'm so glad you came in today. And I have some important things to tell you. You have acute narrow angle glaucoma, and you could be blind within the next 24 hours.
Wow.
And it was a shock. And I said, what is this? What are you talking about? And he explained what was going on with my eyes and how the drainage system in my eye was clogged and fluid was building up, and it was going to cause damage to my optic nerve. And he said, you have to go to the eye hospital down the street right now. And so I left the optometrist. I walked over to the hospital and made an appointment. In fact, I didn't even need to I explained what was going on, and they saw me right then. And kind of like a emergency room specifically for eyes.
Sure.
And sure enough, I had emergency surgery to keep me from going blind. And that was in 2018.
So that was 7 years ago. So I'm assuming, and you could tell me because you've gone through this experience, has technology gotten better as it relates to eyes, our eyes?
Has technology gotten better?
Yeah, in regards to, detecting and working on.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So I go in every year to the optometrist to get an update. And so I as I've spoken with optometrists over the year, there's new equipment for sure. So they have new equipment that has been developed recently that can detect certain parts of the eyes and can help with that. So yes, that I don't know much about that. I just go into the optometrist.
So what's your story going? So what happened?
Yeah. So anyway, I had emergency surgery, saved me from going blind. I go in every year to get a checkup. So all this is to say, to come circle back to your question about photography and Braille. I have started to use Braille again in my artwork in the past couple of years as a symbol, symbolic, right, of the many things in this world that we do not know, that we cannot see or do not understand, right? I don't know if the two of you are parents, have children. I have 3 little kids, and as a father, I have to recognize that there are so much that I don't know. Right? Like there's no handbook to be a dad. It's not like, it's like, oh, here's how to do it. It's like, you got to figure it out. And a lot of times you make mistakes and you don't know what you're doing. And so I try to think about my relationship as a child of God and he as my heavenly Father. And I think I know nothing compared to God. I know nothing.
Oh,
right.
Absolutely.
I am blinded. I'm blind because I'm trying to walk through the dark and stumble in this like mortal existence. So I feel like Braille is a symbol to represent the things that we do not know or cannot see. And so it is text, sometimes text that I write, sometimes text that I get from other sources. And I incorporate it in different ways into my artwork. And I consider myself a photo-based artist. So I use photography as a primary medium. Camera's my tool, but I'll use other things like Braille in my artwork as well.
So I know you may have a question, Carl, but one of my questions is, was it difficult to learn to read Braille or to understand it?
Yes and no. I would first say I don't know it completely, so I still have a lot to learn.
Was it like Morse code or,
Yeah, right. So there are 2 different ways to write Braille in English. Now, I have done no research and know nothing about Braille in other languages. So I can't speak. I can't speak to what it is like in other languages. But in English, there are 2 forms of Braille. There's a condensed version and a full standard version. So, for example, you could spell a word, the word photo, P-H-O-T-A, and that would be 5 letters, and it would be 5 symbols in Braille. But there's also abbreviated versions where you can, instead of writing 5 symbols, it might be 3 symbols, right?
Did you say P-H-O-T-A?
Oh, sorry, P-H-O. Did I say that? O-T-O.
Okay.
If I said that, I misspoke.
No, that's okay. I just want to understand.
Yeah. No, photo. So I'm just saying that, any word you could have, let's say 5 letters, it can be condensed to 3 letters, for example. So there's abbreviated versions because Braille takes up a lot of space.
Okay.
It's to have a book in Braille could be multiple binders, multiple volumes for one book of Braille.
So I've never, of course, I don't read Braille, and I've only known what I've seen from film, and I'm imagining just like, or similar to, not just like, sign. Look, it's funny I'm talking about this. That's my sign that it's time for my eye drops. And I'll
Hey,
get to that, I'll get to that in a moment. But when it comes to Braille, it's a raised something that's raised that allows you to feel the shape for the letters. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. It's just it's just a dot. It's a bump in the surface. And so as you bring your fingers across it, your fingers are doing the reading, and they can sense the structure of those raised dots.
Right.
And it's in 2 columns, 3 rows. So there's 6 dots, 2 columns, 3 rows for each symbol.
Wow. Man, look, just to imagine what it would be like to learn the alphabet is racking my brain right now. But as you may remember, I explained, I shared with you that I recently was diagnosed with glaucoma on my right eye. And I remember the doctor telling me, the optometrist telling me years ago, looks like you may have glaucoma. And I was like, whatever. Right. And the thing, I guess the real reason is because he says with African Americans, we have big pupils and veins and blood vessels, whatever, in our eyes. So sometimes it looks like it could be glaucoma or something, and it may not be. It's just that because of the African American community, there could be a misdiagnosis based on the size of what's going on in our eye. So I wrote it off for several years. And the last couple of times he asked me, he says, hey, did you go? And I was like, nah. And he gave me, well, he didn't give me a look, but he made a facial expression such as like, oh, well, I told him. And I was like, he's really serious about this. So I followed up, and that's when I found out for myself. And just maybe 2 weeks ago, I had eye surgery. I had laser surgery in my
2
right
weeks
eye.
ago.
Yeah. And I did my follow-up last Tuesday. And, I'm thinking about lasers shooting in my eye because I don't know, right? But when I had the procedure, it was not as invasive as I thought. I was more relaxed and comfortable than I realized. And of course, like you just heard the chime on the phone, it's time for my eye drops. But yeah. So Carl, you got a question? So I can take my eye drops and I'll be right back.
So when you do the Braille, is the Braille part of the photography, part of the picture?
Yeah, great question. No, typically not. It's an extra layer. So I'll give you, and I can certainly share some photos if you guys wanted to include in this video, if you're going to share this later. But yeah, so I might take a photo and print that large, or I often will transfer the photo onto another surface, and then it's applying the Braille on top of it. So it could be a photo on paper, and then I can hand punch the Braille on paper. It might be a photo that I transfer onto wood, and then I might drill the holes into the wood. And then I've done things with a light box. In fact, this photo this image that's on the wall behind me.
I'm looking at it. Yeah,
I'm
checking it out.
This is a photo, and then around the portrait of the man is Braille, and it's drilled into wood, and it's a light box. And so you actually plug it into the wall, electricity, and there's LED light strips that are inside, and the light comes through the Braille.
Oh, nice.
And so there's different ways I might apply the Braille. Sometimes it's sometimes if it's a larger photo on canvas, I might adhere little wooden half domes onto the canvas as the dots, right? And so the Braille can take different forms in the work.
Is the Braille describing what the picture is, or is just the message?
Not necessarily. So, for example, I just had I have a couple pieces in some museums, local museums here. There's a large art show that was the whole state of Utah, and also the West. So Arizona, Idaho, Utah was a big regional art show. And it's held at the Springville Museum of Art, which is one of the oldest museums in the Mountain West. And this one piece that I did won the best of show. So I won the best of show out of everybody. It's a photograph of me and my son, almost kind of like a Madonna and child. If you think about the old religious paintings from the Renaissance and things, maybe of the Virgin Mary and the Christ child, right? There's a little hearkening to that. It's myself and my little baby. I have a 1-year-old son as a little baby, and so this photo was taken months ago, but I'm holding him. So it's a black and white photograph of just the two of us, printed on a fine art paper, and then Braille on top of that. And the Braille is actually some writing that I did in a journal. I like to write in a journal occasionally, get my thoughts out. And so I was doing some writing in relation to what it means to me to be a father, and how hard it's been for me to be a father. It's not been an easy journey. I love my children, and I love being a dad, but it has been a difficult journey for me. Just emotionally, spiritually, it's been hard. And so I was doing some writing about this, and what I'm learning about being a father and my relationship with my heavenly Father, with God, through this process of me being a father to these little kids here. And so it's just a journal entry. So then that is in Braille on top of this photo. And it ended up winning best of show in this massive art exhibit. There's about 300 works of art in the show, and there was about 3,000 pieces submitted. And they accepted about 10%, and then of those 300, they chose one for the best of show, and that was this piece. And so, yeah, so that's just an example of the type of writing or the type of work that I might create.
I always thought that, well, I didn't always think, I wondered if, because like Carl asked a question about how, I guess it's incorporated. I wondered if you had a piece of art, be it a piece of a shot photography, picture that you've taken, and you made a copy of it, and the Braille was in it, or the original was here and there was a copy with Braille. I mean, I just couldn't imagine what it looked like, but it charged my brain to try to understand what it would be like. And if you remember, one of the things that I thought about when we were at the mastermind was, you should have an art show for the blind, legally blind and not legally blind, so that they can experience something specifically for them. Now, I don't know if you're going to do it, but I just imagine that being something that would be like out of this world,
That's a great point, and it's a great idea. And in fact, before you had mentioned that, it was maybe a couple months ago that my wife mentioned to me. She says, "Hey, what if you make some work that people can actually touch?" I have. It's very common. If you go to an art museum or you go to a gallery, it's like you can't touch the art.
Right.
You can't touch it. Why is that? Well, the reason why you can't touch the art is because we have oils on our fingers.
Yeah.
Right. And if you start touching the artwork, the oils can damage the colors. It can damage the materials, right? Over time, if people are rubbing it, it might start degrading and wearing down. And you want the art to be preserved and to last. So for curatorial purposes, the practice is don't touch the art. Now, there are people who do make artwork for the blind. It's typically very sculptural, very three-dimensional, right? So you think of a sculpture that's made out of wood or ceramics or something, and a person who's blind might be able to feel it, right? But yeah, there's very little artwork that I know of, if hardly any, that is two-dimensional on a wall for the blind to touch. Just in the past couple weeks, I've started to start thinking about and researching materials that can be used, right? Certain plastics that could take the oils, certain resins, certain resins that can be okay with touching. But there's other things that I'm thinking about of, well, what if the artwork can be worn down? And what if you do see the change in the artwork over time? right? As people are touching it. So I am exploring that. That has not been something I've done yet, but I'm very interested in the tactile quality and making something that those who are visually impaired can participate in.
Well, maybe look, maybe another reason why they don't want people touching the art, because some people are clumsy.
you know, I have a piece in a museum in downtown Salt Lake City right now, and they had a big press releasing, and all the press showed up from the local news stations and everything for this art show. And I was speaking with one of the curators at the museum afterwards, and the curator told me, they said, we had so many members of the press touching your artwork.
Oh, wow.
because it was a light box, and the light was coming through the braille, and the way it played with the image, it felt like it was almost three-dimensional. There was almost like this in the mind. It appeared as if it was three-dimensional, but it wasn't. So they were trying to touch it, and so they ended up creating a sign and putting up a like one of those banners in front that says "Do not touch." So since then,
you got something going here, Tyler. You got your own thing, and even though you said that there is art that's made to be touched, I guess for blind people, I think you've got your own lane here, man. I really do. And
there is a little bit of there is a little bit of that.
And you're considering the exploration factor of creating art that may be worn down for a reason. Even that, I think that's a significant lane for you in what you do. You can have some that can be touched and maybe others that should not be touched. But you're the creator and the original, the author of this style. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a new thing for me, and I'm enjoying it. I just and it is resonating with people. I just had an opportunity. There's an arts organization that's based in New York City. They're an international arts organization. They have residencies. They put on global events, and they reached out to me a couple months ago, and they said, "Hey, we love your work. We've seen your work, and we love it, and we want to commission you to do this larger series." And so I just finished this. We did a body of 50 prints. I had to hand punch 50 pieces for them as a commission, and their turnaround. It was kind of a fundraiser event for them, and they're selling it globally. Just these 50 pieces as like a limited edition piece. So I just use that as an example to show that yes, you're right, Charles. Like, people are resonating with this style that I'm tapping into, and I think there's a lot more to explore with the Braille and my particular photographic technique and photographic styles. So I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, your intellectual property, man. You're the author of something that has never been done before. I know. Excuse me. When you told me about it, it reminded me of how someone talks about a certain dish of food, and you start to get hungry for the food. My brain was like just going through all these iterations of how does that look? What would it feel like? I'm just really mentally traveling down a path that I know nothing about, but trying to understand it at the same time. So yeah, wow, that's
you talk about, about creativity and being an artist, right? The creative process is not easy. It's a grind, and it's a fight sometimes. And sometimes people say, "Where do you get your ideas?" Right? And I think they come in different ways. For me, I often find that two things. One, when I'm quiet, when I'm still, right? A lot of times when I'm lying in bed at night or in the early mornings, right? If I go to bed at night, I say a prayer before I go to bed, and kiss my wife goodnight, and I lay down, and the lights are out and it's dark, and I'm lying there in my bed, and my mind might start churning, right? And thoughts might start coming to me. And it's the time when I'm quiet and still that'll happen. And the early morning hours, right? If I wake up at 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, before my kids get up, those moments when I can take some time in meditation or prayer, thoughts will start coming. Oftentimes in the act of writing, as I try to write, thoughts will come and I write those down. For me personally, I see that as God trying to speak to me through the Holy Spirit in a still small voice. And when I'm too busy in life, and it's not bad ways, but like there's work to do. I got to clean the house. I got to do this. I got to travel. I got to do whatever, and life can be busy. And in those times, that's not when the ideas are coming. It's in the moments when we're quiet and still. And I think that's a principle for all of us, no matter where we are, but particularly for creatives. Particularly for creatives.
Carl, can you relate to that? Like those quiet moments when you come up with lyrics or a song idea?
All the time. It's those moments where the revelations of things or the concepts of stuff that I couldn't figure out while I was trying to do them, all of a sudden comes clear. So I totally understand that.
Yeah, man. I love it. You said something else, Tyler, which immediately resonated with me. And you talked about the emotional state as a father, and I to me, it's very personal. As it sounds like it may be personal to you, but I'm an emotional man, but I'm a direct, matter of fact man at the same time.
Me too.
So when it comes to my kids, even though they're grown, I know your kids may be younger, even though they're grown and they have their own lives and their own interests, I am so deeply rooted to their well-being, their future, and I know I have very limited say with the decisions that they make, but I so resonate with the care of my adult children. Probably always will. I don't know if they fully get it, but yeah, I definitely can relate to that. And I think sometimes us guys, us men, us fathers, we don't get credit for having the emotional connection or being considered caring enough. And I think that was very powerful for you to even share that little bit about how important it is, even if it's because of the connection with God and you to your children. But I can definitely relate to that. So you are not alone, man.
Yeah. And this might be relevant. When I first became a father, well, let me back up. Growing up, I always thought I would be a dad. Right? I'm like, I had a father. The men around me, my leaders as a young kid, that I had were all fathers, and I was taught by my parents. I was taught by my church that being a dad, having kids was a good thing. And so I always imagined that I would have kids. So when my wife and I met, we started dating. We dated for about a year before we got married. And, there was conversations of, do you want to have kids and how many kids, which is natural for two people as they're dating each other to have those conversations. And I expressed, yes, I'm excited. I want to have kids. I'm excited about being a dad. And then we got pregnant, right? Which was planned. We planned it. We said, okay, we're going to have kids. And 2 years into our marriage, we had been married for 2 years, and we decided to have a kid. And it threw me for a loop in a way that I was not prepared for.
Okay.
Right? Because I was always a pretty emotionally stable guy.
Okay.
Every day I've always been very positive, very kind. I've always tried to live by Christian principles. And then my wife got pregnant, and I thought, wow, I don't know if I'm ready, of course, which I think is pretty common. Most
too late,
particularly for fathers. That's right. You think, woo, I don't know about this. I don't know. But what happened was, we were living in Philadelphia, as I'd mentioned. We were living in Philly. My oldest was born in the Philadelphia hospital, and an incredible experience, right? And having a child is it's inspiring. But in the days, weeks, and months that followed, as this new little baby is in my life, I found myself getting very angry for the first time in my life.
Really?
And I wanted to create. I wanted to, I'm an artist at heart, and I wanted to spend my time creating. And I found that I couldn't. It's like, man, this little baby he was a stranger to me. I'm like, yes, I love him. He's my son, but he's also like, I don't know his personality. I can't have a conversation with him. He doesn't talk back. I've got to change his diapers. He's crying all the time. And for the first time in my life, I was 30 years old. I was 7 years ago. I was 30 years old when he was born. And I felt myself getting mad and angry. I wanted to throw things at the wall. I wanted to punch things. I wanted to, I was just irritable all the time.
Okay.
And it was like this monster was inside of me and was coming out and it scared me. It scared me.
Was it ever revealed to you why?
I don't know. I do know we talk a lot in our societies about, I should say a lot. We talk more about postpartum depression for women than we do for men.
Right.
I don't know what all I know is that my son was born and I had these emotions and these feelings, and it was not good. And I had to struggle with it. My wife at one point, she in a moment of frustration and anger herself at me said, "Hey, you need to get anger management counseling."
Oh, wow.
Right. And it was humbling and it was eye-opening. And so as an artist, I'm thinking like, I'm trying to deal with my emotions, and I'm going to my studio every day, and I'm working on creating new pieces and photographing and working. And I'm dealing with all this pumped up energy and anger. And so fast forward as and I started working with a therapist and worked through those things. And now it's worlds difference now. That was 7 years ago, and it's worlds difference. And I have really worked on being a very loving, gentle, kind father, being present for my kids' lives and teach them good principles. But I am using that experience in my artwork, right? Because it's the universal principles of fatherhood, of generational trauma, of how do we understand what it means to be a father, and the struggles that come with that, and the lack of understanding we have around it, right? So as an artist, as a photographer, I am grappling with themes and topics around what I believe to be eternal principles, that we can be an eternal family, that my children can be my sons. I have 3 sons, that they can be my sons forever. And I am never relieved of the duty of fatherhood.
Right. No,
right.
For sure.
So then I'm making these images using Braille, and I'm photographing, and I'm thinking about these experiences and asking myself these questions as a creative.
I tell you, I remember my son, I don't know if he was 2 or 3. And, I don't know if kids are really smarter at their young ages than we were, but I remember he was a little guy, and he's sandwiched. He's got an older sister and a younger sister. They have different moms, but he's the middle child. And I remember saying, he couldn't even talk, Tyler. And I was like, are you taking my energy? And he was like, He couldn't answer.
Wow. Yeah.
Like he actually understood what I was saying. And I was like, oh, snap. He responded to me, And, but I have always felt a certain closeness to all of my children at different parts of their lives. And I just really resonate or relate to, what you're saying. Even the therapy piece, I have a therapist. I'm good with it. I like therapy personally.
It's helpful. It's helpful. Honestly,
look, check this out, Tyler. Call me cuckoo, but I like therapy.
But my wife and I go to a therapist, and it's very helpful, and our marriage is strong and healthy, and we love each other. But I think therapy can be helpful for a lot of people, just to work through and give yourself tools and understand
and reconfirm things. Yeah,
that's right.
Now I'm kind of curious also, Carl, before you want to jump in with anything?
No, go ahead.
Are any of the boys, any of your children interested in your work, like for themselves? Are they interested in the arts or photography?
Yeah, so I have a 7-year-old, I have a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So my 1-year-old's just crawling around learning to walk, and my 3-year-old's more interested in Spider-Man and things like that.
No baby mirrorless on the way.
No girls. But my
baby mirrorless camera.
But my 7-year-old, he's in 2nd grade, and he's really smart, and he loves drawing. He loves writing. He's actually very interested in movie making. So he actually makes little movies and edits them on CapCut, and he has his green screen, and he films his stuff. And
my granddaughter likes that kind of
storyboarding and stuff. So so my oldest is very creative.
Nice. Wow. So what's next in the Gathro world? Like what's your next show or your next project? Is it developing more of some of the things we were discussing, or what's next for you?
Yeah. So I'm looking for I've got a body of work that I'm finishing up and coming 2026, plans on having a solo art exhibition. I'm in talks right now with a couple galleries in Salt Lake area and in Park City. So having a solo art show in 2026. There's a big art fair that I've been invited to that in Reno, Nevada, I'll be participating in, and so I'm looking forward to those things. And of course, I mentioned a little bit earlier that I'm a professor. I teach at the university here in Salt Lake, but I love that. I love teaching. I love being an educator and helping young artists and young creatives, young photographers. But I am working on building my own business online, teaching and coaching online. And so you say, what's next for me? I'm working on trying to build out an online teaching and coaching program, helping people in their creative artistic journeys.
Look, maybe the department can come by and you get an art MP4 to
there you go.
cover some stuff. Well, folks, if you just joined or if you're watching the replay, we've been speaking with Tyler Gathro. He's an artist, photographer, and educator. And this was really a very engaging conversation from my perspective. And I couldn't wait to have him come on so he can talk about what he does. I found it to be interesting and keeping the wheels turning. You know, they say there's nothing new under the sun. I think we just proved that that's not correct. So I'm looking forward to finding out more of how Tyler's work turns out. And like, maybe we can have you back on the show when you get closer to one of your big events, and you can let us know what's happening at that point.
Yeah, we'll do. Hey, thanks so much. It's been a joy, and I appreciate all your questions. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Any closing comments, Mr. Carl?
Yeah, no, it's really enlightening. I really enjoyed this conversation and everything, and good luck with all your endeavors. Please keep in touch with us.
I appreciate that. And yeah, thanks so much.
You know what they say at the $100,000 mastermind, Tyler? Let's go.
Hey.